is only Wednesday possible. But we're going to be talking through the Travelers Championship. I've been on a little bit of a golf struggle, although it was really nice going to the U.S. Open and sort of seeing some stuff. And you sort of pick up like little things that you're asking about, and you're talking to people and the family members of some of these guys and stuff. And then, it's just kind of fun. But I'm gonna play probably a little bit of a light slate this week, but I am excited about it because golf has become my new sort of without basketball going on, which is my most stressful, and golf is not as stressful, and it's much more like it's enjoyable. It's 4 days. You sort of always have a chance if you've got guys alive. It's just a fun one to play. So I'm looking forward to this one, talking through it. Sheets, any overall thoughts? I guess I'll say one thing first. This is a much smaller course that should leave opportunities, even as they try to make it more difficult for some of these guys who are guys we would never play on other tours are going to be guys who you're going to be looking at on our other tournaments, guys who are going to look like much better plays here. And it also has the best history of players repeating their success at the Travelers more than any other tournament on tour, I believe. So something that past results, I think I would weigh more than I usually would in this tournament.
That's interesting. I have a couple of observations. First of all, just kind of like a fun observation from the U.S. Open this past week. I actually quite enjoy the late starts.
Oh yeah,
I enjoy the evening from out east. Yeah. I love watching the night golf. I mean, I love it. I love when it doesn't end until like 10 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? I not to mention, obviously, from your perspective, I mean, you don't have to get up at freaking 4 a.m. to get your lineups in or whatever.
Right.
But I actually quite enjoy that. The other thing I wanted to mention about golf DFS is this. I think this is actually kind of a sneaky good opportunity in the next little stretch in DFS. And again, this is, look, you take your edges where you can get them, but we take last week, for example, we talked about this when we were talking about another sport, that the top owned golfers were Ricky Fowler and Wyndham Clark, and they both smashed. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's happened a couple of times this in recent months or whatever. And I feel as though that those types of results are going to lead to more concentrated chalk over the next several months or whatever. I think that people get very intimidated by when like the chalk hits or when the quote unquote good plays hit. People really start thinking that the industry or like the algorithms or whatever are just infallible, and right. And so I think that the process should be the same. I mean, identify good plays, but don't be afraid to pivot off of it. And I think that it's just really my theory. And I'd be interesting to track this over the next 8 weeks or so. I think that the chalk is going to be even worse. As far as like your ability, the need to play it. I think that you're going to get very concentrated ownership. And I think that let's just say that, and we'll get to a couple of examples, but let's say some guy just shows up as like a good play. I think people are just going to just pound them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And people are going to be afraid to play guys that project 2 points lower, even if they're going to be like 150 ownership. And I think that can make for – I think, listen, it might be an edge that we never actually realize, right, because you might not win. But I think that it's like Sklansky bucks. I do think that you're going to be getting good value on lower-owned players over the next several weeks because, quite frankly – the chalk has just been smashing the crap out of every slate.
Yep.
So that's just again that's one observation that I think is worth noting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point, and I agree with you. But also, even while the chalk has been smashing, there's always been a 4 or 5 percenter that's been in there in the mix and often in the winning lineups. Like a Tom Kim last week was one of those guys. You know what I mean? Yep. Anyway, so let's pull up your screen and we'll go by tiers. This is this is a fun one because you've got an interesting tier here in this, and I guess I'll just jump out with it because originally my plan was to just to start with Xander or Cantlay, and sort of like fade the post whatever run the U.S. Open stuff, and I understand those guys have it but I feel like Xander because of his sort of the way that the weekend struggles happen at the U.S. Open, that he would sort of be a little bit lower owned. it's not showing that he's going to be crazy lower owned, but he will be the lowest owned of this group. And I'm sort of starting to rethink myself and wonder if I shouldn't just pivot back over to Rahm and Scheffler. We can get them. And the thing is, like we say with Rory, I mean, Rick was making an interesting point. They're like, well, he has the same downside as he has a lower downside than a guy like Tommy Fleetwood. This was Rick's point, and he's got the same upside, basically, if you look at the results. Which is kind of an interesting way to look at it. And that's what I keep saying about Rory and why it makes, usually very little sense to play him over Rahm and Scheffler. But this week I happen to like, and because of the past history, Xander won this tournament last year. Patrick Cantlay has 5 top 15s in a row. The weird thing is none of them I think are above like number 8, which would be terrible at 10-2. So I do like those two guys quite a bit, but my guess is depending on how much I play, I'll probably have a mix of all these guys.
Yeah. I guess most important is that I do like all of them. I think that you can play, you could play these guys in your lineups. You know what I mean? Like usually, I don't say usually, in some slates, I'll say that, listen, these guys are all fine, but I prefer to not prioritize them. Right. I actually do like all of them. And I think that you'd be smart to probably get one of them in.
There's a counter to that where that nobody in the next tier is going to be as owned as these guys because it's hard to play two of them together. So interesting to get into the next tier.
It's hard to play two of what together?
Two of the big spend ups together. You could do it, but it's hard to play the Scheffler and Hovland together. I mean, you could do it, but I just think people, if they're going to do that, would probably play like Cantlay and Schauffele. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the way I have them ranked, I have, this is no great revelation, but I have Scheffler and Cantlay 1, 2. And then I guess a little bit of a drop to the others, and just based on price, I suppose. That's why I just have Cantlay rated a little higher than Rahm. And I do have Rory rated the lowest of all of them. I guess to your point, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't mind continuing to fade him. Continue to fade. He was fine. He was good this past week. Whatever.
No, he was great. Obviously, I was just sort of saying in general. If you take the couple years of sample that we've been talking about this stuff.
But I guess Cantlay was seems.
Yeah.
Right, but then I'm looking at Rahm at only 15%. Really?
I don't know if that's going to be the case, but
I don't know if that's going to be the case either.
Yeah.
But I do like I think I do like all those guys. But what's interesting, like you said, as far as construction goes, and we're going to get to them, there's going to be some hyper chalk in like the 7K range, which we'll talk about. And if you can avoid that combination, you're probably doing well.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about the 9K range. And fortunately for me, in this range, the guys I like are not going to be popular. I like Fleetwood. I'm gonna keep playing this. I understand there's not even like a perfect. He doesn't really have like a major weakness, and I'll take him right now. So just to give an idea, he's the 10th price golfer on the board, which sounds like it's a big sticker shock for Fleetwood. Fleetwood over the past year is the 5th highest scoring player on average of any player in DFS. At the majors, it gets even better. I think he's the 4th highest scoring player in majors over the past couple years. He is easily the most underrated golfer still, although he's gotten a little bit more shine lately. And I think he's an interesting play. And I think Ricky Fowler is going to be completely unowned. And, he had a bad Sunday. Big deal. And also, again, he can hit it, but not like he's quite as far as the very, very top guys. This is a course I expect him to play well on. So I kind of like the idea of using them, and I kind of like the idea of using Fitzpatrick. And I don't think these guys are going to have ownership. I will avoid the Wyndham along with everyone else. It feels weird after, the winning the last week, but this is not an ideal course or anything for him. I do believe in Wyndham Clark's upside in future. I think he's really, I don't think that was a fluky thing entirely. He's won 2 out of the last 4 weeks. It's hard to say it was fluky. But he would be the other low-owned one. And then if I had to pick between the Morikawa, Finau, and Hovland, and it's largely due to ownership, it suits Morikawa the best. But I actually think I would just suck it up and go Hovland if I had to pick one of those 3. But Fleetwood and Ricky and Fitz would be my favorites.
So you think Finau would be your least favorite of the 9s?
Just that's my standard. I like him. He seems like a great guy. I don't play him as much in DFS, and it almost never really hurts me.
Yeah, your point about the ownership is very evident as I'm looking through this. I mean, because I don't see a single person in this range at 15% or higher. I have the highest owned guy in this range I have is 14.75% or something and that's Morikawa. Mm-hmm. So maybe your point is pretty well taken. Maybe you should play these guys because of the ownership. Now, the way I have them ranked, I have them Hovland first, and then Morikawa. But I don't think Fleetwood's a bad play at all. I mean, listen, like you said. I mean, you call it sticker shock. The guy's in the freaking top 5 really every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I mean, whether it's U.S. Open or Travelers or my club champion, you know what I mean? Like he's just been playing great all year, and Love's been playing great all year. Ricky Fowler's been playing great all year. So I like both those guys, and I like both those guys better than Finau. Quite honestly, I think I like those guys as hard as this is to say. I think those guys are both playing better than Morikawa. And as much as, Fitzpatrick just always seems like a guy you want to play, I mean, like, those guys I just mentioned are playing better than him too, So I like Fowler and Fleetwood and Hovland. I just think Hovland's just like, he's really just really, really good. So I would use those three. I would say I would say Hovland, Fowler, and Fleetwood.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. As we get into the 8K range, and I think you'll get a little bit more because of the way builds work, the 10K plus guy and one of these guys. Well, that's what my guess is. Yep. Somebody's going to have to explain to me why Theegala will be unowned this week, because I've seen some projections. I've looked at a couple different sites of projections. Why is Theegala going to be low owned this week? Let's see. He finished 3rd here last year for a course that is the most suited. Like I said, the most stickiness of any of the courses. They have the similar results. So that was the first thing that stood out to me in this range. So I'm just going to marry myself to that. I also really like Jason Day, and he is going to be popular. I like that he didn't have to play the weekend, and I thought it was a bad course for him. I think this is very, very suitable for him, especially because he's not very long off the tee. And very good around the green. So I like Jason Day. I like, and then my favorite in this range is going to be the most popular, unfortunately. But because I'm going to play some other guys elsewhere, Tom Kim would be my favorite, along with Siwoo Kim. So both Kims. I have here like Kims as a priority, and those are most of the guys I'm using. If you wanted to play any of these other guys, I think they're all very reasonable. I actually think Hideki's played much better golf than he's priced at this year. He would probably be my next favorite. I think I'm gonna fade the Homa thing. Something happened to him on Friday last week where it just kind of threw me off because he just looked like he couldn't hit a ball straight. Maybe he bounces right back away from his home. I don't know, man. Anyway, JT is the one other weird one. He definitely looks broken. He looks like there's something wrong. He says it's the lowest he's ever been in his life golf wise. And I feel still at some point somebody's going to make a ton of money with him. So overall, though, Theegala, Day, and both Kims are my favorites here.
So a couple of things. First of all, I have to, I'm going to update all the projections a little bit later, and specifically the ownership projections because they're wildly variant among where I'm looking. Like for example, I got one place, that has Jason Day at like 20% ownership. I have another that has him at 7. You know what I mean? So So I got to figure out what's going on over there. And these two sites usually are pretty close. And then the guy. It's funny you mentioned Theegala. So every week, what I try to post on Twitter is I try to compare the what the industry projected ownership was versus what the actual ownership was. And I don't do it every week, but the last 2 times I did it, the one guy that was owned more than everybody thought was Theegala, by the way. So people are going to play him, I think. You know what I mean? Like
people meaning like how many do we think? I don't think he's going to be
not that much, but listen, but another and I think in fairness, the tournaments I was looking at, it was more of the lower level tournaments.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna pound on him this week. I think they're gonna play Tom Kim like you mentioned. I have it like 20% ownership.
Yeah.
The one guy and listen, you already mentioned Jason Day. I have to figure out the ownership over there. I like that. The two guys that I'm looking at that are lower owned, and again, they're two totally different types of players. But one is my nemesis Sunjay M at 8,700. I have him owned under 10%. And just visually, it's just kind of fun to see like a under 10% guy near the top of my sheets, right? So I like that. And then this is like kind of like, I don't want to say the anti-Rick play, but I mean Rick's been kind of on the Cam Young fade for the last like several weeks, and he's been pretty freaking right, if you want to know the truth. But I don't think I can help myself. I think I just want to keep playing him. So Cameron Young and I guess Sunjay M would be the two kind of tournament type plays that I would kind of look at.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And it's going to be an interesting tournament because this tournament seems like every year there's, again, multiple 6K guys in the top like 5, if not 10. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's just like a lot of guys can play well here, but it also has the same weird thing with the consistency. So with that said, we're going to get into the chalkiest range, actually, which is the 7,500 to 8K range, I think. So the popular ones are going to be Henley, Connors, and McCarthy. I like all three of them. I prefer Henley to the other two. Well, I prefer Henley to let me put this. I prefer Henley to Connors. I actually like Denny McCarthy a lot, so it's a little bit of a tricky one because he's going to have some ownership. The other ones I would consider would be Minwoo, but I think my favorite would be Harris English. It's a course that shouldn't be difficult. That shouldn't be like crazy difficult for him. I have to look at I'm pretty sure he has a decent top 20s history here, and he's at a price where it's very comfortable. Struggled on Sunday, but obviously had a really good U.S. Open for him. So that would be my next one. I think Harris English English, McCarthy, and Henley would be probably the guys I look to the most in this range.
Are we doing 7,500 and up or all?
Yeah, 7,500 and up. Oh, I forgot to mention Brian Harmon off of a good week, but also he's been very good at this tournament before. He's another one I would consider.
Yeah. So the ownership projection on Russell Henley ranges from 20% to 35%.
It's going to be really high.
Yeah, depending on where I look. I just assume faded if you want to know the truth. The second guy that you mentioned would be the chalkiest guy would be Corey Connors, and you touched right on that. I'm seeing that as well, and I have him anywhere between 15 and 20%. I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to just fade them just for no reason. Like Harmon, you mentioned. I have him. He looks decent. His ownership doesn't look that heavy. That's the thing. Like I look through this range, and it's like everybody's over 10%. You know. I guess two guys that I see that are under 10, and I actually see, believe it or not, I see like Harris English don't like getting ownership too because at least he had a good week. So let me just give you three guys that I have at 5%.
You think Harris English is getting ownership? That's weird.
Yeah, I have it at 12.5%.
Oh, okay. I have him. Okay. Saberson has him at 4, and I saw him at 7 earlier on the unnamed other site.
So, but of the 7,500, I'll give you actually just one. Actually, are we counting 7,500?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give you 3. Gary Woodland, I have him looking pretty good. I mean, not as good as these others. Like I have them below, like all the guys you mentioned, honestly, like Minwoo Lee, Danny McCarthy, but just for an ownership play. Gary Woodland, and then, boy, I haven't played this guy in several weeks. Steven Yeager looks like a little worse. I'm not letting lie. Right. A little worse, but low owned. And the other guy, again, a little worse but low owned is Benny On. So now those are the three. Those would be the 3 pivots off of what are definitely the better plays. Henley, Henley looks really good, as does Corey Connors. These are very model type golfers, and they're in good. You know what I mean? Like this is, and they don't need to hit the ball far. It's like a perfect spot for them. That's why they're going to be projected well, and they're going to get pounded. But I think that those are good things probably to fade. Especially in the big buy-ins too, because they're going to be pounded in that thing. Yeah, that's where I'm at. So again, let me just recap that. It would be what did I say? Steven Yeager and Gary Woodlands. Those would be the 75 and the what did I say? Gary Woodlands. Oh, Benny on. Gary Woodlands, Steven Yeager, and Benny on.
Yep, those all make a lot of sense to me. So I've got an interesting one. I actually think what I may do is just because the ownership maybe slip down a little bit to this next range, because I think this is the 7K to 7,500 is going to be pretty low owned. So the guys I've got that I'm interested in, and it's probably not going to be all these guys that I can play, but I like Eric Cole with a C. I just feel like every week this guy overperforms. Really like Austin Eckroat. I think we're seeing sort of like a boom of something, and I think that it wasn't like a fluke that he had a really good Sunday round. He's looked really good. He actually played with Wyndham Clark. I watched him for the first couple of days last week, but so Eckroat, Cole, Aberg, and Jonathan Suh. Suh has actually been pretty good, and I feel like this is the kind of course where you don't have to be long, so I think that it's appealing. Oh, and then the one I forgot to mention is I really like both Woos. I like the Kims and the Woos this week. Brandon and Dylan. I feel like they again just consistently overperforming at a cheap price. So those would be my favorites. Probably if I had to pick like just a couple, I would probably go with Dylan Woo and Eric Cole, just because of ownership.
Okay, so to address first of all one guy that you mentioned, I was going to say that what's good about the
I forgot my favorite. Shit, sorry.
Who?
JT Poston is my favorite.
Okay, so what I was going to say is that what was good about the under 7,500s is that most of them are pretty low owned except for one, and it was one guy you mentioned. I have like a full bit of like huge chalk projection on Austin Eckroat. I have it like 16% ownership.
Yeah, I mean at this price he should be.
Yeah, but aside from that, I mean like you could just play whatever you want here. So I'll give you a couple. I got Aaron Rye. And then I'll give you two more that you didn't mention because I do like those guys you mentioned. The Once and Future King, Emiliano Grillo at 7,300.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mentioned Aaron Rye. So Aaron Rye, Emiliano Grillo, and Taylor Moore would be my other one.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think your just overall comment is exactly what you're supposed to do. Just slip down, you know what I mean? Like below 7,500, and play those guys instead of the 76, 77s. I think it'll make very little difference as far as projection and results, and a huge amount of difference in ownership.
Yeah, I think that feels like a good idea because, I think that's actually a pretty good idea. All right, under 8K, I have one extreme
under 7K.
Under 7K. I have one pretty extreme priority, which is Luke List.
There it is.
I actually think, where did he end up finishing? I think he just ended up top 20 last time in this one, but I do think that just 6,600, a place he's played well before, sort of needs a little and just a little boost back. He has had some just like can't put together quite 4 rounds, but I just think it's the kind of course he could play well at. I thought about the Webb Simpson, Hayden Buckley, Mackenzie Hughes. I don't feel great about any of them. I think if I had to pick one of those, I guess I'd pick Hughes. But they're the 3 that'll get a little bit of ownership. Vincent Norman is kind of interesting. I always throw a Kazire lineup in, but mostly I'm pretty uninspired. I would play some Matt Wallace. I think Matt Wallace, Luke List, Joel Dahman, and Dylan Woo are the ones I'd use the most.
That's awesome. Okay, because I have 3 guys under 7K, and you didn't mention any of them, so it's perfect. Yeah. We're gonna have a full portfolio of them. First thing I was gonna say before I even looked, it was like, sure, my top one's gonna be Patrick Rogers, but they screwed with me. They put Patrick Rogers above 7K this time, so he's not my below 7K guy anymore. So in order, the 3 that I have are again other guys I've recommended in this part before. Mark Hubbard. Lee Hodges and match play hero JJ Spawn. So those would be my top 3 under 7K. And I'll tell you, this is usually not my style, but again, considering how much I want to kind of just avoid the Connors, Henley, that whole deal, maybe you'll see me trolling around in the bottom feeder range, which I usually don't do.
Yeah.
Maybe I will throw some confetti out there with these guys.
Yeah, and I am going to talk myself into more and more of the Matt Wallace as we keep going. I want to bet on these guys who were like had all this hype and then sort of didn't perform as well as everybody expected, and then sort of started to hit their stride later on. Best example being the guy who just won the U.S. Open, in Wyndham Clark, and Matt Wallace. I'm not saying he's going to win the U.S. Open anytime soon. I just think that that's the one I probably am going to end up. And of course, we're going to have to give a shout out to our guy Piercy, because every time he plays, he ends up top 30, top 40, whatever.
He does, right?
Yeah, he's been right there. Your friends was observant.
Yeah.
But all right, Chief, let's play the game. Above 10K. All right, Sheets, you go ahead first.
Well, we're not even talking about above 10K. We're just basically saying who's going to win, right?
Yeah.
So the winner, I will give the winner as Patrick Cantlay.
Okay, so you went the chalk one, and unfortunately, like, I really expect. Okay, I'm gonna say Xander. I cannot believe I'm not saying Rahm here, but I'm saying Xander.
All right, top guy under 10K to make the top 5.
Well, I'm just gonna take my low-owned guy my guy. I'm just gonna roll with Fleetwood as I always do.
Yep. Forget low owned. I legitimately think he's probably the most likely of all of them to make top 5. I mean, for real. I shouldn't say.
Maybe more.
I have to say Hovland has a better chance. But,
okay.
Yeah. But I'm gonna say, for the purposes of this, I'm gonna be thematic. Okay, since you're gonna say him, I will say Ricky Fowler.
I love this. Is great. My lineup's building itself here.
Keeps that going. Yeah.
All right, under 8K.
Under 9K.
Under 9K, excuse me.
Top
top 10.
Yeah.
Let me just look at my notes real quick. I have, who is that? This is a problem. I write all these things down and I can't read my writing. Sheets, will you go real quick? Because I'm trying to.
Yeah, I'll go first. For me, it's between the 3 guys with the M in their names. Between Tom Kim, and Sungjae M.
I know what I'm doing.
And I will go with Sungjae M.
Okay, you're gonna go with Sungjae M. I'm gonna go with Kim. Which I could sort of cheat and just say the Kims, but I'm going to say
Kim.
Tom. I'm going to say Tom Kim, although I feel really good about Siwoo as well.
All the M's.
Yeah. Kims, and then wait, who did you say again?
The M.
Oh, Sungjae.
I have M. Yeah, and you have T Kim, right? Okay.
I have the 2 Kims tying for whatever, 10th place.
Okay. Under 8K to make top 20.
Well, I did want to point out that I think we may have overlooked Adam Scott a little bit, but maybe that's okay. There's a lot of golfers. But my favorite under 8K, and by the way, that was under 9K. That's why I got totally confused with my thing. Okay, under 8K, I'm going to say, I think the answer is supposed to be Henley, but I'm just going to say Denny McCarthy.
Yeah, I'll say Henley. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's definitely like a high owned play, but let's stick to the contest a little bit. I will say Henley.
Okay.
And remember, just if Henley makes top 20, doesn't necessarily mean he's in the optimal lineup. You know what I mean? Like
right, 100%. Yeah, that's true.
Wait, who did you say, McCarthy?
I said Denny McCarthy.
What about under 7K just to make the cut?
Just as a cut maker, these guys all feel like fun plays until you put the fire, the one up to my fire.
Always a party until somebody gets hurt or something.
I forgot to mention him, so I am going to say it's not the right answer, but it's Ben Griffin.
Okay, you'll say Ben Griffin, and I will go back to Hubbard.
Yeah, that's probably the right answer.
Now, how about somebody over 9K to miss the cut?
Okay, I think we can find somebody here. You know what? I'm going to say, I hate to do this because it feels like they're so stupid, and like predictable, but I'm just going to say Wyndham Clark.
That is 100% the correct answer. But since you ganked it for me, I am going to say boy, oh boy, I can't do it. I was thinking
It's
about
so
it.
hard with the top guys because they never
I was
miss.
gonna do it. I was so.
I know. It's they never miss.
I was gonna. I'm not gonna say who I was gonna do, because I don't want to curse him. Actually,
You were gonna say John Rahm.
no, I was gonna say Rory. Actually,
Oh, that's interesting.
but I'm gonna go with. You know what? I the answer has to be back spasms. I'm gonna say Morikawa.
Oh, good call though. That actually is. At least there's some basis behind it.
Yes. Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, it should be a fun tournament, guys. Hopefully, we'll have some sweats and stuff. I do want to start doing more showdown stuff as the summer progresses and we only have baseball going on.
Well,
So
the problem is that as far as delivering content goes, it's like Sunday. Oh, so you want to do like every day?
No, I can just write in my sort of my early builds kind of a thing.
Yeah, because you know what was so interesting to me? For some reason, the showdown is just not interesting to me in the first 3 rounds. Because it's like the same as, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of the same as far as I'm concerned. But at least with the 4th round, they make it kind of fun by giving them the position points in advance.
Yes,
and that makes it kind of interesting. You know, that's the only. I don't think I've ever played like the first 3 days.
I like the first round a lot because I do think like I was listening to some of the things and you're like they were talking about, you know, just different first round leaders that really aren't going to win. It's like Brian Harmon was one that Rick was talking about as a really, really good first round play, but not necessarily a great tournament.
You think that's actually a thing, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of guys, because there's a lot of this leading the first round stuff, and also in a lot of tournaments, there's a lot that involves tee times and things like that.
Well, let me ask you this. That's another thing I was thinking about. So I never really factored that in too much, but this is the same question I'm gonna ask you about. It's sort of like the question I asked you about Coors Field when I first learned baseball.
Right.
Like if there is like a big wind that's supposed to come in the afternoon, which makes the afternoon wave like much harder. Are you supposed to play the early one because they're better plays, or does the ownership like more than swamp that? You're supposed to play the guys that have it the worst.
I think the answer is I think you're supposed to always play the guys who are in better positions. The problem is it's hard to know because even with those things, like especially when you get into weekend stuff or if there's any delays or anything, then it's like, well, they could play these holes and then these holes the next day. Like it's really tricky. But like this last week, it would have been so wrong for the most part to play anybody who had a late start time because whenever the sun came out, everybody was shooting at least 3 strokes worse. Like it just, the course played totally different. So I think that there is some merit to it, but I would always side with I don't think you should give everyone else enough credit for being able to pick all that stuff out.
Okay. That's the question. Okay.
Yeah. If they're overreacting to it, it's like Coors. Yeah. If you really like a stack there and they're going to be like around 10%, play them. If the other team's if somebody's going to be 30%, don't play them. So I just would let it go that way. And it is also harder to dictate for projections. I would imagine it's harder to run for the showdown because it seems like it would be harder. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, and the other thing that's always difficult about the content for showdown is that is again because of the only thing I really like to play is the round 4. It's like Sunday morning. Like it's kind of hard to like make time for people to come to Sunday morning, and it starts like Sunday morning.
Oh no, yeah, I don't think shows would be done on it, but I think we can start. Yeah, and you do the projections.
I do. I put the projections up for sure.
Yeah, no, I've seen you do it. I appreciate that, and I'll do mine. I want to get more. You know, look, this is the time. You know, we're not going to have as much going on. It's going to be a little more lethargic in terms of how many sports. I know you have other ones going on, but for me, so I want to try and find things I can do that will be helpful in other ways. You know, maybe for some people, and also I want to get better at it myself. I might have to start doing some LOL shows with you or Chan or something. Just
listen, guys. This is what I'm trying to do. Listen, I'm going to try this. I got to find somebody in our chat, in our Discord that really knows the game. Because what I want to do is for League of Legends. I want to do like a live sweat where I kind of like go through what's going on. And analyze kind of like from a DFS perspective, the way I would root it. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's got to do this, but the guy that's got to do it with me has got to be more like a sportscaster. He's got to really know what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And I know that Chan could do it, but he's usually I think working when these things close at the end. So I put a little thing in there. Just to try something new. I don't know. It really is. Listen, it's not. It is what it is. But it is kind of it's kind of a fun sweat actually when you get it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, just keep on doing new stuff, and I gotta grind this freaking MMA thing. Gotta get that lineup in one of these days. I gotta figure it out. It's gonna be one of those things that I probably will settle on something. I've only changed my mind like 17 times in the last day. I'll probably settle on it on Friday at some point or whatever, but we'll see. There are there's also a couple of guys whose opinions I respect. I just want to, see their podcasts or whatever it is. And then we'll just kind of let it roll. And I'll post my lineup in there once it locks and people can sweat it if they want. It's an early start, like 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I'm pretty sure that like the first like couple of fights are going to be kind of key fights. So we'll see how that goes.
Sounds good, buddy. All right. Well, good luck to everybody for this weekend. And we will be with you in Discord. I'll post my early builds for what it's worth a little later. Although I would recommend fading me at this moment because I've not been at my best. And we are true DFS. This has been a really lousy month for me, both golf and DF and MLB wise. So ready to move on. Ready to get back on track.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you guys at 11.
All right.
Well, wait, first I'll see you guys at 6.
6. Yeah. See you guys later.